So it has been a while. How have you been? I recently came back from a trip to Taiwan and I brought my camera with me, and I thought it'd be fun to share a little bit of that trip with you all. To be honest, I was really inconsistent with filming and wasn't really sure how I'd put this all together, but when I thought about it a little bit longer, I realized that I just really wanted to share a little piece of my culture with you all, and what better way to do that than through food. Food is not only one of my favorite things to sculpt, but also is one of my favorite ways to connect with others. When I was in Taiwan, I went to one of my absolute favorite breakfast spots,阜杭豆浆, and it is definitely on the touristy side and the line gets really long, but in my opinion, it is absolutely worth it. If you somehow find yourself visiting阜杭after this video, be sure to pop across the street to this Snoopy themed 7-Eleven. It is really tiny but absolutely packed with cute illustrations everywhere. And if you head downstairs, there's this little eating area with this Snoopy merch display and 2 large Snoopy plushies and cute chairs to top it off. Anyway, since I didn't really get great footage while I was there, I figured I would recreate the meal by sculpting it in miniature with polymer clay. I started with creating the tiao, which are fried dough sticks. It is a fried dough shaped into long strips that are really crispy on the outside and airy on the inside. I cut short pieces of beige clay to make the ones that go inside the savory soy milk, and used a toothpick to create the classic clover-like shape, as well as texture the ends to create the fluffy interior that would be exposed when it's cut open. And as for the ones that go inside the shao, more on this later, I did the same thing to a longer piece of clay and made sure to do the texturing off the camera so everyone can see what I'm doing, but I tried the same texturing technique with a small chunk of aluminum foil, but honestly I wasn't really sure if it was working to achieve the texture I was looking for. But between alternating between the aluminum foil and toothpicks, I think I achieved something that looks like a youtiao. Okay, question for the bilingual people. When you insert one word from one language to another, do you use the inflection of the more prominent language? Or do you just use the proper inflection and tone for each language? I've been doing the latter because saying youtiao feels weird to me, even though that makes the sentence flow better. If that makes any sense, let me know in the comments. After texturing all the pieces, I used chalk pastel to shade them to make them look, well, more fried. Using a brush helps me get into the crevices that I made while texturing. And after that, I made a little fried egg omelette thing. I added bits of green clay into yellow clay to imitate scallions, and I tried texturing it, but honestly I wasn't really sure what to do to make it look more egg-like. And now working on the actual shao itself. I'm not really sure why, but right now shao has like a chokehold on me. I think about it at least once every 2 days, and until I get my hands on one, I will continue to do so. I realize I have not really explained what shao is. Shao is a baked flatbread that is crisp and flaky on the outside and soft and pillowy on the inside. At阜杭, it is baked inside a clay oven that gives it a really wonderful baked flavor and crisp bottom. You can basically stuff it with anything your heart desires, and I know there are a lot of regional differences, but at a breakfast place, the two most common fillings are egg or tiao. Here's a little bit of my process sped up at 4 times speed. With making pieces like this, I like to be a little bit more detailed with my shading and coloring process. I made a tiny bag for the shelving using parchment paper. I drew a bag shape and cut it out using an X-Acto knife on the scrap piece of cardboard because I lost my cutting mat. After folding it up, I attempted to glue it together using this new glue pen I got, but it didn't end up working, and this is when I realized that I probably shouldn't have used parchment paper because the whole shtick of parchment paper is to not stick. But nonetheless, I carried on by drawing the logo first with a pencil and then going over it again with a 0.3 pen. If you know anything about proper Chinese stroke order, please close your eyes right now and pretend you don't see anything. I am going for shape accuracy here, and am doing more drawing than writing. And here's the bag all done, and then I popped on the shelving inside. I then glued some sesame seeds that I had pre-made onto the shelving. And now on to the real star of the show, the savory soy milk, or xian jiang. I don't know how to describe it other than heaven in a bowl. It is really rich and full of umami and has the right amount of tang to make it not heavy. I pre-made the cilantro that would go on top by first making a mold and then pressing green clay into the mold. Though honestly, I ended up cutting and retexturing most of the pieces that came out of the mold anyway, so I'm not really sure how much work the mold did. The first bowl I made to hold the soy milk was so ugly, even though I made it off camera so I wouldn't have the added pressure and stress of filming, so I ended up having to remake it because I couldn't stand how ugly my first attempt was. I'm still learning how to make dishware, but I'm actually quite proud of how this little bowl came out. I pressed some clay to the bottom of the bowl so I wouldn't have to use too much resin to make the actual soy milk. I mixed some resin with some white and yellow pigment to create kind of the opaque look. And I tried my best to create bubbles in the resin by stirring as vigorously as I could, but somehow no bubbles were really made. I swear when you don't want bubbles in your resin, they are everywhere, but now that I want bubbles in my resin, I somehow can't get them to form. But after putting some of the resin into the bowl and nestling the tiao inside it, I decided it was looking a little bit too yellow, so I added some more white pigment and swirled it around. Then topped that off with the cilantro that I made earlier and cured it all under a UV lamp. I added some spots of golden UV resin for the sesame oil, and the savory soy milk is now complete. I'm using another one of these circular keychain holders that I got from Daiso that I had used for my dim sum keychain a few videos ago. I really like the way it displays and protects my sculpts, and maybe I should have gotten more. I painted a wood texture with gouache onto some brown construction paper to add a little bit more depth to the background so it wasn't just a flat color. And I was going to use double-sided tape to stick everything on, but it really just wasn't sticking, so I just ended up gluing everything on with Elmer's glue. And this is how the keychain came out. I'm actually quite proud of how this one came out. I think it's actually a step up from my dim sum keychain, and yeah. I hope you like this video. It's kind of like a vlog slash sculpting combo, but otherwise I will leave you guys off here. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!
拿到哪一只？我拿到这一只是用薄的。太薄了。太包起来的哦。哦，我看不到，不过没关系。听吗？可以。